Remember a few years ago when they tried to ban N-acetylcysteine, NAC? That was weird. It was like there was this whole thing where N-acetylcysteine was previously used in a pharmaceutical sense, so it couldn't be used as a supplement, but a lot of people really loved NAC and there was a lot of industry pushback. So what's interesting is the FDA is still reviewing it. We're supposed to find out in the next couple of years maybe if it can technically be fully approved for use in supplements, but in the meantime, it's a highly effective supplement that is still available. So it's cool. NAC is one of my staples, but there's a really interesting new link between N-acetylcysteine and insulin resistance, which is quite fascinating. And it has to do with an indirect link with the liver. So we'll talk about how that works, how it helps the liver, which helps the pancreas, which helps beta cell function. And we'll just dive into all the details. Also, if you don't mind, drop a comment down below in the comment section. It helps the algorithm out. YouTube has shifted. They really like where you engage with a video, similar to how you would in other platforms. They're trying to compete with that, which is weird for a channel like mine because it's just information. But if you can, just make it a habit to drop a quick comment. It really does help the channel out, and we're seeing an improvement from it. So please do that. And also hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So N-acetylcysteine, first and foremost, it is a precursor to cysteine. What that means is it's a precursor to glutathione ultimately. So cysteine is a rate-limiting step, or the rate-limiting step, when it comes down to the liver producing what's called glutathione. Okay, glutathione is known as the master antioxidant. Now, there's other antioxidants within our body that are probably more powerful, but our body produces a few very key antioxidants that are the most potent, like glutathione, superoxide dismutase. But the problem is that we become depleted in cysteine if we are taxing our liver or we're dealing with toxic load from all kinds of environmental things. Then the liver does actually run out of the precursors to make glutathione, and it can lead to problems. So NAC is highly effective. That's why it was used as a pharmaceutical before. It's highly effective for aiding the liver with that. And we've seen some strong evidence there. But we're going to talk about the link with the pancreas in a second. By the way, I popped a link down below for LMNT Electrolytes. I highly recommend these if you're doing any kind of dietary overhaul. Like if you're trying to adjust the amount of calories you take in, their ready-to-drink sparkling version is like a replacement to a soda that doesn't have calories, but also getting you the added benefit of getting electrolytes in. So I know a lot of people that are sedentary and they were addicted to sodas, but they switched over to drinking an LMNT because the sodium in the LMNT can actually curb the appetite, and believe it or not, actually has an energy mechanism. It helps you produce a little bit of energy. So it's better to have a little sodium than it probably is to have a bunch of sugar. Now, of course, you want to, make sure you're in need of these electrolytes. You don't want to drink 6 cans a day or whatever, but it's still a really promising thing. So that link down below gets you a free sample variety pack. Highly recommend it. You get a sample variety pack of the stick packs with any purchase, even if it's the sparkling ready to drink version. So that link is down below in the top line of the description. So to open up a point, there is something that is called spillover. When the liver is stressed, and there's a lot of oxidative load and inflammation happening there can be a spillover over to the pancreas, especially with two organs that are so closely involved with metabolism and digestion. So the pancreas isn't just about insulin resistance. We're going to talk about how that works, but it also produces digestive enzymes. So when it's inflamed and it's having problems, it's really problematic. When the pancreas is inflamed, in the case of maybe acute pancreatitis, you actually have a significant reduction in digestive enzymes that are produced, and ultimately can lead to a significant decrease in vitamins absorption, like vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin E. Okay, so you see deficiencies there. Anyway, I digress. So there's a study in 2018, I believe, that was published in Scientific Reports that was really interesting because it looked at N-acetylcysteine directly on liver stress. What this found, looking at 54 people, they gave them N-acetylcysteine, and they found that over a course of a couple weeks, they saw significant reductions in their liver enzymes, AST, ALT, and even ALP, which isn't really measured a whole lot. So overall, massive reduction. And the fact that they decreased when NAC was there doesn't tell us that NAC decreases these enzymes. It tells us that that liver was stressed, and the NAC took the load off the liver. The whole key that we're looking at here is oxidative load, stress, okay? So if the liver is stressed, it's gonna have a couple problems, right? You're going to end up having an issue where it's not able to deal with glucose properly. Okay, so it is very, very critical because the liver receives the signal from carbohydrates and then tells the pancreas what to do. They're best buddies. So if the liver's already taxed, you're already having a problem. But when it passes its stress over to the pancreas and the pancreas becomes inflamed, then you deal with beta cell issues, you deal with all kinds of problems here, right? So you deal with the beta cells actually getting stressed and being dysfunctional. There is mitochondria in our pancreatic beta cells. So certain levels of stress and mitochondrial stress can impact our pancreatic beta cells to a point where they don't produce insulin very well. See how I'm like connecting dots here, which is very, very like easy to do based on this literature. Like you can see this big link here. What we're saying is that NAC, being able to reduce the load on the liver, can potentially reduce the spillover that happens with the pancreas. So reducing the oxidative stress and the enzymes in the liver is going to make it so the pancreas doesn't have to take that sort of sloppy second spillover that it's getting, right? So therefore the pancreas can restore its function. Now, a couple other quick things that you can do in addition to taking NAC. Now, what I would recommend, NAC does not have the best bioavailability. That's the only problem. So a lot of times people like take it orally, you're looking 10 to 20% oral bioavailability. So if you take 400 or 600 or even 1,000 milligrams, you're looking at getting more like 40, 60 or 100 milligrams with that kind of dose, which would still be okay. And I would assume to take NAC before getting like a glutathione injection or IV, right? Because I don't like the idea of just adding an antioxidant in, because then you're sort of making it so that there's no real impetus to produce that antioxidant. I'm always concerned with like shutting down your production of it. So I like NAC because it's providing the precursor so the body can do it itself. So yes, you can take NAC. I would also recommend taking alpha lipoic acid, one of the most potent free radical scavengers that's out there. Okay, so alpha lipoic acid is a sulfur compound, so it can have a direct impact on glutathione and liver detoxification as well. So NAC and ALA, tremendous compounds, definitely tremendous. But there's also an indirect way that you can help, or actually a more direct way that you can help the pancreatic beta cells with their oxidative stress. And that's using something called Rooibos Tea. So this was a study published in PLOS One. It was rodent model and partial in vitro, but still fascinating, where they found that pancreatic beta cells actually restored function and actually repaired themselves and reduced, of course, the oxidative stress when exposed to green rooibos. So that's a powerful flavonoid kind of antioxidant compound there, which has a direct impact on the pancreatic beta cells. What it did is it reversed or it turned down the apoptotic genes. Our pancreatic beta cells, when they become overstimulated, they end up actually going through a hyperexhaustion and can die. Okay, not only do they die, but they have a pre-programmed cell death that occurs when they start to get damaged. So what the Rooibos did is it reversed and it turned down the apoptosis genes so the cells didn't just prematurely die. They actually had a chance of recovering. So you see where I'm going with this. Tackle the beta cells and help them, but also tackle some of the stresses in other areas of your body. It would be very disingenuous for me to not really tell the truth here though. These are all Band-Aids. We know that the big metabolic issue is the bigger play. But NAC and this ALA and using Rooibos, these can be very beneficial, but it does need to happen along with lifestyle change. Otherwise, you're just gonna be pouring more stuff into this bucket and you're like little drops here and there with NAC, like draining it. But this bucket's filling and you gotta do things like exercise. You gotta walk after meals. You gotta lower your carbohydrate intake if you're eating too much. You gotta lower the processed foods and seed oils and like all the stuff that's like the hyperpalatable garbage, right? So reducing some of that so that you can also have these things take an effect. For every little bit that you improve your metabolic health through exercise and diet, the NAC, the ALA, the Rooibos, these things are gonna have a more pronounced effect. But if you're continually adding garbage in, you're just gonna be constantly combating this thing that you can't win. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel. I'll see you tomorrow.